Well now, a question. Why does constant input make you feel less real? Why does the hand that refreshes, and the eye that grazes, and the mind that scrolls leave the heart thin and the soul hollow? You have believed you were addicted to content. No, you are not addicted to content. You are addicted to a borrowed identity that lives by comparison and perishes without it. And because a borrowed identity cannot live by itself, it must sip and sip and sip again, yet never be filled. When you say I, how are you going to localize that? Behind the eyes? In the chest? In the comments? In the calendar? In their approval or your performance? No, no. The true I is not in a timeline because it was never in time. The true I is not caged behind the eyes because no surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. Absent from the body, present with the Lord, says Scripture. And this is not poetry. It is the fact of spiritual identity. If you try to pin the I to a profile, it will wriggle into unreality. If you try to house it in a role, you will need more roles to keep the house standing. And so the ache grows. I am not here to scold you for looking at a screen, any more than I would scold a man for looking at a tree. Tools are innocent, but worship is not a toy. You say, I feel agitated. You say, I am restless, a little envious, strangely tired, though I have done nothing, and I feel like a spectator to my own life, performing a self I do not inhabit. I hear you. I have seen it in myself and in others who have come to me for 30 years. The quickened pulse on the pillow, the compulsion to check, the inward bruise of comparison. Do not condemn yourself. Do not condemn the instrument, but mark this with sober love. What you enthrone as your reference becomes your God, and thou shalt have no other gods before me. This is not a talk on productivity or attention hacks. I never give human advice. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. What we are about is a spiritual diagnosis. The issue is not time management. The issue is misplaced worship and misplaced selfhood. I and my Father are one. Either that is the center or something else will try to be. And if something else sits on that throne, even a good thing, even a necessary thing, it will exact a tax you cannot pay because it will ask for your eye. Hear the symptom list as you might hear a doctor describe a fever, not to frighten you, but to identify the disease. Agitation is the flutter of an eye trying to breathe in borrowed air. Envy is the confession of worship. Someone else's image has become your priest. Restlessness is the wanderer's step when home has been misnamed. Performative living is the shadow play that whispers, if they see me, I will see me. And then the curtain drops, and you are still unseen to yourself. And the spectator feeling, standing at the edge of your own life, watching it stream past, this is the clearest sign. Your eye has been displaced from its temple. Let us be very clear. Your spiritual you isn't confined to the material body, and so it cannot be confined to a device or a brand or a narrative arc. You can't leave the true I because you aren't in it and you never have been. The I is in God, and God is the life of the I. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. And until that is realized, not merely believe the soul will mistake noise for nourishment and motion for meaning. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and strategize. Not be still and optimize. Be still and know So I set before you no promise of a better feed, only the promise of a better foundation, the recovery of the I through presence and a return to the One. There will be a way in silence and in simple obedience to the law, one God, and love thy neighbor as thyself, to step out of the stream without leaving the world, to live in it yet not be named by it. There will be that click when the need to compare drops because sufficiency has been remembered. But for now, receive the diagnosis with gentleness. The ache beneath doom scrolling is not boredom. It is the loss of the true I. And even now, in the very moment of hearing, begin to whisper within, not as a technique, but as a truth, already true. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let us speak plainly. Comparison is not a mood. It is not a feeling that happens to visit you after a long day. It is liturgy. It is the quiet ritual of offering up your attention, your admiration, your imitation, and your fear to the images that sit upon the altar of your mind. Every morning glance, every midnight count, every reflexive check, these are the beads you finger in an unacknowledged chapel. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When the feed defines your worth, when the trending defines your direction, when approval defines your safety, you have built an altar and called it normal. And the law does not bend to our naming. The law simply is, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. I am not condemning you. Do not condemn yourself. See what is in operation. Worship is attention plus trust. Where your trust goes, your self follows. Scripture has said it in a sentence that cannot be improved. They that make them are like unto them, so is every one that trusteth in them. If you continually kneel to images, you become image-like, flat, reactive, lighter than leaf and chaff. If you continually kneel to the One, you become one, whole, sound, rooted. I hope you will never tamper with a cosmic law, because it is not personal and it is not partial. If you use it to inflate yourself today, it will exact its price tomorrow. If you lean on it rightly, it will bear you safely as surely as 2 times 2 is 4. Violate it, and you have brought the wrath of principle upon yourself, not because principle is wrathful, but because you have built a bridge without a foundation and then try to drive a life across. Notice how devotion looks in this age. Attention offered hour by hour. Admiration offered to strangers as a tithe. Imitation offered in tones, poses, opinions, because likeness promises safety. Fear offered as incense. What if they forget me? What if I am not enough? This is worship, and the altar is false. A false altar cannot bless. It can only bargain, and its bargain is cruel. Give me more of your I, and I will give you more of what never satisfies. Do you see why agitation follows? An I pledged to every image must break into pieces to keep its vows. Identity fragments under such worship. You become many selves, one for each audience, one for each trend, one for each anxiety about being unseen. You answer the algorithm with a face, and your colleagues with another, and your family with a third, and the private ache with a fourth. And then you stand bewildered, not knowing which self is the witness and which is the act. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Multiply the minds, multiply the instability. This is not a moral indictment. It is a spiritual physics. Hear me now with the tenderness of truth. Your value is not in numbers, not in reactions, not in being perceived, not in winning the invisible contest. No, no. Your value is not a summit you climb by steps of applause. Your value is not the curve of a graph, not the curve of a body, not the curve of a narrative that others approve. Your value does not inflate with praise, and it does not deflate with silence. If you anchor value to the weather of public feeling, you will live in a perpetual storm. If you anchor value to God, you rest upon the rock. He only is my rock and my salvation. I shall not be greatly moved. Do not try to manage the storm with more cleverness. I never give human advice. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. We are not working on behavior to impress a tribunal. We are returning worship to its rightful home. The first commandment is not a suggestion because the structure of reality is one, not many. One God, not rivals. One source, not a marketplace of powers. To practice comparison as devotion is to kneel to a pantheon of shadows and to call the fear that results motivation. It is idolatry in plain clothes. And do you notice the consequence written into the practice? What you revere, you resemble. Attend to envy, and you become envied and empty. Attend to presence, and you become present. Attend to the holy, and holiness appears as your own quiet atmosphere. This is cosmic law in the age of algorithms. Do not try to use it. Align with it. Do not try to bend it. Bow to it. In your oneness with God, measurement loses its throne because sufficiency is remembered. I and my Father are one. From that oneness, the soul stops bargaining and begins to be. Now then, if the false mirror steals the eye, if these many altars have asked us to split and scatter, we must ask the sober and saving question. Where is the I? Not in an image, because no image ever held it. Not in a role, because no role ever contained it. Not in a body, because no surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. And so we turn not away from life, but away from worship at the wrong altar, toward the discovery of the I, where it has always been. Even now, as a first act of re-worship, let the heart whisper its one true creed. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Well then, let us follow this to its root. When you say I, where do you place it? Are you in the body? Are you behind the eyes? In the heart? In the gray folds of a brain? If I open the skull, will I find you? If a surgeon explores with the finest instruments, will he come upon a chamber labeled self? No. No. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. Are you in the bio? Then in the little sentence that says what you do and whom you impress. If the sentence changes, did you move? Are you in the role you play? Mother, maker, manager, artist. If the role is taken, have you been taken? Are you in reputation, how they think of you when they are not with you? If their thought turns, did you disappear? No, not a bit. And will an algorithm find you? It can sort your pictures, but can it discover your presence? It can predict your tendencies, but can it behold your soul? It can calculate resemblance, but can it see reality? No, no. The true I is not a content block. It is not a persona. It is not a costume woven out of adjectives and accolades. The real self is spiritual, unbounded, without edges or coordinates. You cannot lose it by losing a job, and you cannot gain it by gaining a following, because it was never in those to begin with. I and my Father are one. That I, not the name on the door, not the name on the profile, not the name on the lips of admirers, that I lives in God. And God lives as that. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. This is not flight. It is foundation. It is the stabilizing axis of identity that does not tilt when the world leans. Do you see the subtle snare that hides in noble clothing? You tire of the feed's hollowness, and so you embark on self-improvement. Good, you say. Now I will fix the self. But if the improvement is only an upgraded image, a sleeker version of being seen, a better costume for the same altar of comparison, then you have poured new wine into the old skin of worship. More habits, more tools, more tips, but the eye is still sought where it never was. Now the gym is an altar. Now the bookshelf is an altar. Now the morning routine is an altar. The ego kneels in fresh colors, but it is the same kneeling, and the law remains. A false altar cannot bless. It can only bargain. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Identity is not an achievement. It is a revelation. It is not built. It is beheld. The I that is real cannot be made by you because it was made by God, and God did not make it in parts to be traded for praise. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth, for ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. Do not misunderstand that word dead. It means dead to localization, dead to the illusion that life is in the mask and the mirror. Your life is hid with God, unavailable to the surveillance of envy and the arithmetic of applause. So we cease the hunt on the surface. We stop driving our net across the waters of appearance to catch an eye that never swims there. We turn to presence. Practically, this means we begin to wait where the I can be remembered. I cannot make you a technique merchant. I never give human advice, but I can tell you how I remove the body from thought so that receptivity may open. Sit in a chair that does not argue with the spine. Let the hands rest without effort. Close the eyes, not for any occult reason, but to quiet the parade of forms. In this resting, be virtually unaware of having a body. Want nothing, plan nothing, argue nothing. Repeat, within, not as magic, but as truth, the one password that returns worship to its home. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Then wait without demand until, by a grace you cannot schedule, the sense dawns, not words, not visions, simply the soft knowing I am. In that stillness, you are not improving an image. You are awakening from it. In that stillness, you are not polishing the role. You are discovering the actor was never you. In that stillness, the reputation recedes like a tide, and what remains does not stain with blame or shine with flattery. It simply is. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. From that oneness, you do not disappear from life. You appear to life as yourself, and you will see, as surely as 2 times 2 is 4, that the true I cannot be found in an image because it was never in the image. Be still and know, and let the knowing be enough. Now listen with the ear of the heart. There is a law at work here, not the law of men who vote and revise, but the law of being that simply is. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Attention is seed. What you repeatedly behold, you plant in consciousness. What you plant, you harvest. What you harvest, You must eat. This is no punishment. It is principle. The earth does not scold you for planting thorns. It simply grows what is sown. Consciousness is such a field. Consider it as simply as 2 times 2 is 4. If you violate the principle, you have not angered mathematics. You have collided with reality. If you build a bridge and ignore the load, you have not offended engineering. The structure fails because the law was not consulted. If you drive through the red light, the law does not chase you with emotion. Metal meets metal, or fear meets bone, because sequence and speed were violated. It is the same in the age of algorithms. The feed is not moral or immoral, it is mechanical. Attend to outrage, and it offers you more outrage. Attend to envy, and it will obligingly multiply images that prick envy. Attend to vanity, and you will be shepherded to mirrors. This is not the wrath of a company. It is the reflection of a law. What you revere, you resemble. Do you see the double edge? You cannot use attention as a plaything. It is a sword that will cut which way you swing it. If you bathe your gaze in fear, fear becomes your atmosphere. If you bathe it in judgment, judgment grows like mold on the bread of your days. If you bathe it in God, God becomes the quiet climate of your being. Do not ever tamper with the cosmic law, because it has no favorites. If you borrow its force for self-inflation today, you will discover the hollowness tomorrow, not as vengeance, but as vacuum. And so, if hour after hour, like incense before an idol, you offer attention to comparison, the law will perform flawlessly. Comparison will govern you. They that make them are like unto them. So is every one that trusteth in them. Now set the ethical stake in the ground. For this too is law and not suggestion. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love does not consume a neighbor as a measuring stick. Love does not turn a brother's face into my ruler, nor a sister's gift into my lack. To consume another as a metric is theft by the soul, and theft always costs the thief. Harmony cannot register where the law of love is set aside. As you sow fragments of rivalry, you reap a fragmented self. As you sow the gaze of blessing, you reap a self that blesses. There can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law. But how then shall we return? Shall we fight the feed with willpower, as if a more muscular self could wrestle a river? No, no. We do not overcome an idol by staring at it harder. We remove an idol by withdrawing worship. Worship is attention plus trust. Therefore, the way back is not struggle, but surrender of attention to the one. Turn within, not as flight from life, but as fidelity to life. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When in quiet receptivity we let the gaze rest in God, the center is reestablished. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. From that oneness, the algorithm becomes a tool again, a neutral instrument, touched but not enthroned, used but not obeyed, seen but not trusted as God. I am not here to give human advice. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. The law is impersonal. The mercy is personal. Return the gaze to the one, and consequence begins to reverse like a tide obeying the moon. Attend to the holy, and holiness colors the hours. Attend to the sufficient. Grace and sufficiency appears. Even now, let the heart begin the replanting with the only seed that never fails, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Repeat it, not to force a result, but to align with what is already true. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow in God, reap in God, look to the one, become one, and the field of your life will answer to its sower. Now let us see how this altar of images fashions a speaker who has no being behind the words the feed suggests, and you begin to desire what is suggested. It trends, and you begin to fear what is trending. It rewards, and you begin to perform what is rewarded. Little by little, a vocabulary grows that is fluent in reaction and foreign to reality. You speak quickly because the prompt is quick. You assert loudly because the crowd is loud. You explain yourself to hold your place on the raft of opinion. And all the while, beneath the volume, the eye grows faint. A borrowed identity speaks loudly, but it cannot live deeply. Mark the inner violence, but gently. You abandon your own quiet knowing to keep pace with the noise. You trade being for being perceived. You delay obedience to the one clear inward nudge in order to answer 100 outward pings. You begin to narrate a self you do not inhabit, promising later to return and make it true. Later rarely arrives. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, says the prophet. But quietness finds no chair when reaction occupies every seat. The soul cannot hear while it is applauding or arguing. While the tongue rehearses answers for an audience you cannot see, the ear of the heart grows dull. Who told you that you must comment on every storm? Who told you that your safety lies in keeping pace with a newsfeed's pulse? Who told you that visibility is existence, not the spirit? My sheep hear my voice, said the master. Not my sheep hear every voice and remain sane. The law of attention still governs. As you sow reactions, you reap reactivity. As you sow impressions, you reap impressibility. As you sow compulsive speech, you reap the barrenness of speech without root. And let me say this as one who has watched this law perform itself over long years. Do not tamper with it. If you borrow its power to inflate a self-image, it will, in due course, deflate that image and leave you with the emptiness you trained for. Not as punishment, principle is not irritated, but as simple harvest. Consider what is really happening beneath the cleverness. The borrowed self makes you the actor. It demands that you direct the scene, adjust the lighting, manage the audience, and deliver the line on cue. You are busy, but you are not alive. I am not here to give human advice. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. When God is the actor, there is nothing to perform. There is only life to be. When the true self yields the stage to the one, words arise like fruit from root, not like paint on glass. Then speech has sap in it. Then silence has speech in it. Then action is not a stunt for effect. It is a quiet inevitability, as natural as breath. But you see, the feed teaches you to reverse this. It trains you to mistake movement for meaning, answers for wisdom, volume for substance. It tutors you in publicity and starves you of presence. Even your virtues, rehearsed for display, become thin. You announce compassion before you feel it. You declare conviction before it is forged. You parade gratitude as strategy and wonder why the heart remains unsoftened. Let your words be few. Scripture counsels not as a gag, but as a guard. Few, because they have weight. Few, because they are born of hearing. Few, because they are carried by the life that spoke them. Notice the fatigue that attends this borrowed life. It is not the good tiredness after honest labor. It is the spirit's weariness after hours of managing impressions. It is the ache of answering without having listened. Receptivity thins. Prayer feels crowded. The sacred syllables are spoken but cannot land. Do not condemn yourself for this. Recognize the mechanism. The soul's ear cannot open while the mouth is required to keep the page alive. If every pause feels like danger, if every quiet is suspected of irrelevance, then the very vestibule where God would enter is kept locked by the janitor of anxiety. Therefore, the remedy is not more expression, not a sharper brand of speech, not a better performance for a nobler tribe. The remedy is to return to listening, desireless, quiet, receptive. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and ready your counterargument. Not be still and prepare your announcement. Be still and know. Withdraw worship from the altar of being seen, and let worship return to the one who sees. Let the self step down from the role of actor and take its ordained place as instrument. Live thou thy life. Fulfill thyself in me. In that posture, the words that must be spoken will come of their own accord, at their own spare and holy hour, and what does not need speaking will find its rest in the silence that feeds all true speech. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let us now step into the practice, not as an escape from life, but as a way of remembering life as it is in God. Silence is not a hiding place from duties or news or neighbors. Silence is the doorway where the true I is remembered. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. The closet is not geography, it is interiority. The shut door is not an oak door. It is the turning of attention from the market of images to the one. God is the actor, I am merely the instrument. We are not trying to create a mood. We are offering availability. Practically, it begins simply. Sit in a chair that does not argue with your back. Let the feet rest on the floor without strain. Do not cross anything. Let the hands be easy in the lap, the arms relaxed, the shoulders not held. Close the eyes, not for any occult reason, but because the parade of forms is more insistent when the window is open. There is no special breathing. Let breath be what it already is. In this position, let yourself become virtually unaware of having a body, not by force, not by clenching the mind around a command. Simply let the sense of weight and edge recede like a tide going out. The aim is not to empty the mind by will. Do not try to sweep thoughts as if they were crumbs on a table. Do not chase images. Do not wrestle them. Do not wait for the last word to stop. If a car passes on the road, it passes. If a thought passes, it passes. You remain. Let traffic be traffic. You are the hill. Be still and know that I am God. Not be still and police your mind. Be still and know. If noises come, let them be part of the field. If feelings rise, let them have their weather. Your work is not doing. Your work is not wanting. Desireless waiting is our posture. Seek not to get peace, to get clarity, to get guidance. To seek for effects is to keep the altar of self supplied. Seek God alone. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Seek, and ye shall find. But do not knock for a prize. Knock for presence. Within, you may let the heart whisper, not as magic, but as truth, already true. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Then wait. Wait without a clock inside you. Wait as one who has come home and does not need to prove arrival by a sign. What should you expect? Often, at first, there is only the noticing of noise that is all right. The noticing is already the loosening of enthrallment. Then, sometimes like the softest click of a latch within, there comes a gentle shift, nothing dramatic, no fireworks, a relaxation deeper than muscle, a sweetness without object, a sense, however slight, that presence is more substantial than sound, that I am more real as awareness than as actor. In that instant, you are, in truth, absent from the body and present with the Lord. The need to monitor yourself lightens. The appetite to compare falls quiet, not by argument, but by irrelevance. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. If it does not come today, do not reach for it tomorrow as a technique. Do not tamper with a cosmic law. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow the gaze of fidelity. Reap the climate of fidelity. Return to the chair, the quiet, the desireless waiting. Let the mantra be a key turned gently, not a lever yank. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. Silence is not escape. It is arrival. It is the doorway where the true I is remembered. And from that remembrance, life is lived, not performed, when you rise. What then is this that sometimes arrives like a latch settling, like a door that was always open, becoming known as open? I call it the click. Do not mistake it for emotion. Do not hunt it as trance. It is not the music of gooseflesh, not the swelling of sentiment. It is the quiet certainty, without argument, without temperature, that I am held in God and God is living as this I. In Him we live and move and have our being. In that instant, whether it lasts a breath or an hour, awareness ceases to shop for itself. There is no negotiation. There is no merchandise called worth. It is simply the recognition of being in and of the one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Notice how the mechanics of the soul change when the click is present. The mind is no longer a cashier counting approvals. The heart is no longer an open market estimating profit by applause. The need to measure dissolves not because we scold it, but because there is nothing to measure against. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Want is the premise of comparison. Remove want, and the scales are without use. In the felt oneness, sufficiency is the unargued atmosphere. Wholeness is not congratulated. It is assumed, as natural as breath you did not decide to take. You are not bigger than your neighbor, not smaller, not equal. You are one, and so is your neighbor in the one. From that awareness, how do you see others? No longer as rivals, no longer as fantasies to imitate or defeat, not as screens onto which you project your lack or your longing. You begin to behold them as ideas of God, individualized expressions of the same life that now confirms itself in you. Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us? When you behold your brother as an idea of God, envy withers for lack of fuel. When you behold your sister as an idea of God, you cannot steal her to prop your image. You bless her to be herself. Perfect love, love grounded in one life, not two, casts out the fear that drives the market of comparisons. then blessing is no longer a performance. It is an inevitability. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, not to earn merit, but because the self you now honor in God is the same self radiating as the neighbor. Do not think the clique makes saints by spectacle. It makes humans by reality. You do not glow for public eyes. You grow quiet for God. Speech loses its strain. Action loses its theater. Guidance becomes as simple as the next faithful step that presents itself like a path worn by providence. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. Absent from the body, present with the Lord, I find that life lives me instead of me trying to live life. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Out of that instrumentality, expression gains sap, silence gains weight, and comparison falls from its throne because nothing essential can be taken or added. Do not tamper with this, as if it were a lever to pull when anxious. Let it come as it comes. Let it pass as it passes. The taste will return, and more frequently, as attention is trained to the one. Each time the click is given, it leaves a fragrance behind, and that fragrance becomes your atmosphere in the marketplace, in the office, by the crib, at the screen. The feed will still turn. The images will still parade, but you will have forgotten how to kneel to them. You may look and even post, but you will not ask the image to explain you to yourself. You will not outsource your I. The tools return to toolness. The altar returns to God. Now hear the formula that steadies the feet as you rise from the chair into the day. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Repeat it not to convince, but to remember. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. And when peace is the climate, measurement chills into irrelevance. You have nothing to win because nothing real was ever lost. You have nothing to defend because what is of God requires no defense. And so you re-enter the world, the very same world with a different center. You may touch the instruments of the age and yet remain unnamed by them. For now, let the heart seal this knowing with the password that returns worship to its home. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. From such sufficiency, the next work becomes simple, and the world becomes a place to bless, not a stage on which to prove an I that was always only in God. Now we test the grace we have tasted by the very pavement of our days. You may touch the world's instruments, but you must not let them name your I. Tools are not gods. Information is not identity. Reaction is not guidance. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Keep this as boundary and blessing. The device is a hammer. Do not ask it to father you. The headline is weather. Do not ask it to tell you who you are. The surge of feeling is a tide. Do not obey it as captain. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. From that oneness, the instrument is restored to instrumentality. Practice one small fidelity that becomes a gate of great protection. A pre-use pause. Before you open any app, take the phone in your hand and let the hand become still. Close the eyes for one unhurried breath, not for a cult effect, but to reseat attention in God. Ask within, simply, honestly, who is using whom? If in that breath you sense even the faintest tug that the instrument is about to use, you set it down. Be still and know that I am God. Whisper, not to get a mood, but to remember your source. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Then open, if you must, as the one who is already sufficient, not as a beggar at the window of opinions. Now, as to conduct. Non-interference is the law of love applied to speech. Refuse to manipulate others with your posts, your outrage, or your spiritual performance. Do not bait. Do not inflame. Do not parade virtue to harvest admiration. Take heed that ye do not your alms before men, to be seen of them. I never give human advice. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. If something holy must be said, let it come as fruit, not as strategy. If nothing holy presses to be born, let silence be your contribution, for silence offends no law and inflames no fear. How then shall we discern in the stream? By a simple test that is as clean as arithmetic. Ask of what you consume and what you emit. Does this increase envy, superiority, lust, fear, or contempt? If it does, set it down. It violates love of neighbor and wounds the self who is one with that neighbor. By their fruits ye shall know them. Whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. If a clip makes you small to make me large, it is theft. If a joke makes another made in the image of God into a prop, it is idolatry. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow contempt, reap isolation. Sow envy, reap lack. Sow blessing, reap abundance of heart. This is law, not sentiment. Do not tamper with a cosmic law. It has no pets and takes no bribes. When you feel the impulse to post, pause again. Ask, will this bless or will it brand? Is this true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it is none of these, it is noise. And noise is worship offered to the God of reaction. Let your speech be Yahweh with grace. Remember, God is the actor. You are the instrument. Instruments do not perform. They are played. If the music is not sounding, do not saw at the strings to prove you own a violin. Wait. When the word is given, speak. When the hand is moved, act. When the heart is warmed, bless. And now let this integration turn into rhythm, for a single good choice cannot hold a day. Train the nervous system to obey consciousness, not stimulus. Morning, noon, and night, even for a minute, return to the inner closet where sufficiency is known. Let one breath precede the scroll. Let one sentence follow the glance. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that cadence, you will discover that the stream can be touched without being swept, that the instrument can be used without being used up. Pray without ceasing is not chatter. It is recollection again and again and again until attention, made holy, returns by habit to the one. From such habit, you will walk through the market with a free heart, and no name but the I that is hid with Christ in God. Now we set a rule, not as a whip, but as a walking stick, a rule of recollection that returns attention to the one until return becomes your gait. Attention becomes holy when it is trained to return, again and again, to the one, not by pressure, by practice, not by vow, by rhythm. Think of 3 bells in the day, brief and faithful, morning silence, a midday return, and an evening release. Each is minutes only, but each is true, and the truth of them will become climate. In the morning, before the world asks you for a name, give your eye back to God. Sit as before, feet on the floor, hands easy, eyes closed for no occult reason, only to quiet the parade. Do not come for a feeling. Come to be available. Whisper, as one who knows where source abides. Be still and know that I am God. Then, simply, honestly, allow the mantra to seat you where you already are. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. 2 or 3 minutes may be all. It is enough. In the morning, will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. Looking up is the act. The length is secondary. At midday, return. Not as anesthesia for discomfort, not to run from the task, but to remember the actor. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Choose set times, just as you would choose meal times, perhaps before you check the news, perhaps before you open the inbox. Replace compulsive checking with conscious checking. Ask, who is using whom? If you sense you are about to ask an image to father your identity, set it down. 1 minute is sufficient to reseat consciousness. Be still. Thy grace is my sufficiency, my conscious oneness with God. Then proceed as one already supplied, not as a beggar seeking crumbs of worth. Scatter through the day what I call micro silences, 10 to 20 seconds before replying, before posting, before buying, before comparing. Pause. Soften the shoulders. Let the jaw unhook. If you can, let the eyes close. If you cannot, lower the gaze to the heart. Breathe once without management. Say within, who speaks? If the answer is hurry, wait. If the answer is fear, wait. If the answer is God, it will not shout. It will simply be sufficient. Let your words be few, and let them be born of this little altar of quiet. These seconds do not waste time. They redeem it, for they keep the instrument from playing itself. When you fail, and some days you will scroll before you know you have hands, do not condemn. Simply return. 70 times 7. The return is the practice. You have as much right to forgive yourself 70 times 7 as to forgive your neighbor. A just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. Rise up again, not by self-lecture, but by recollection. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Train attention as one learns arithmetic, repetition without drama, accuracy without shame. Do not tamper with a cosmic law by turning it into guilt. Law is impersonal, and mercy is personal. The law is that what you contemplate, you become conscious of. Therefore, contemplate the one, and consciousness will remember its one. In the evening, release. Before the lamp is dark, lay the instrument aside. Put the device to sleep, and let it sleep without you. Sit, even for 2 minutes, and let the day pass through you without argument. Bless what was done, release what was undone. Ask forgiveness where you have been sharp. Offer forgiveness where you have been pricked. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. You are not in the physical. Your eye is not in the day's ledger, absent from the body, present with the Lord. Close the night with sufficiency. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Keep this rule without moralism. Miss a bell and ring the next. Shorten a sit and lengthen a silence. The fidelity is not to the clock. It is to the return. Attention becomes holy when it is trained to return again and again to the one. And as this rhythm steadies, notice what it heals. Not only agitation, but rivalry. Not only nerves, but love. For when the I is remembered in God, the neighbor is remembered as God's idea. Then the next movement is inevitable. Love that does not measure, blessing that does not grasp. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, not as a performance, but as the overflow of sufficiency. From such overflow, we will learn how to turn rivalry into blessing, online and off, and to let comparison be replaced by love that keeps no score. Now let us look out again upon the faces, those near you and those pixel thin, and see what changes when sufficiency becomes the air you breathe. When the I is remembered in God, you no longer need what your neighbor has, and you no longer fear what your neighbor has. What could you steal that is already yours in the one? Nothing. What could you defend that is already hid with Christ in God? Nothing. No. No. The war ends where grasping ends. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Want is the sword. Lay it down, and the battlefield becomes a garden. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. And in that completeness, rivalry loses oxygen. The hand that once reached to take now opens to bless. Bring this into the market of screens. Whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. Do not use people as content, trophies, or targets. Do not shear a man's sorrow into a spectacle. Do not parade a woman's joy as your ladder. Let your gaze be clean. If a post appears, remember, that is not a product for your appetite. It is a person for your reverence. Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us? If we have, then to consume a neighbor as material for self-display is idolatry, for it replaces the one with the many and turns the many into means. Keep the altar clean. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, not even the God of engagement, not even the God of applause. Here is the spiritual economy, as impersonal and exact as mathematics. As you sow, so shall ye reap. With the measure you mete, it shall be measured unto you. Sow comparison, reap agitation, sow contempt, reap isolation, sow blessing, reap inner harmony. This is not sentiment, it is law. Do not tamper with a cosmic law. It has no favorites. Like 2 times 2 is 4. Like a traffic law that does not bend because you meant well, this law performs itself. When you bless another, you are not transferring your store. You are consenting to the flow of the one. A candle lights a candle and loses nothing. It gains a room of light. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Let the blessing be God's action through you, not your manipulation of outcomes. I never give human advice. I never push with mind or hand. I stand aside and let the Father within do the works. Practice it where envy usually stands at the door. You see a colleague promoted, a stranger cherished, a friend applauded, and the old ache rises to measure. Do not argue with the ache. Do not condemn yourself for its first throb. Simply return in that very moment. Make of your heart a sanctuary and say quietly, honestly, I bless you. Be all that God has ordained you to be. Let thy good be full in them, Father. Then turn again to the source and recollect your own ground. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. I need nothing from this image to be I. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Wait one breath. Let the click, if it will, settle the latch. If no click comes, the blessing still stands. The law has been honored. The atmosphere will clear. Do this again and again until it becomes your reflex. When you would formerly have scrolled to stoke the wound, pause and repeat the liturgy of sufficiency. When you would have used a clever phrase to make another smaller and your image larger, stop short and choose silence. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. It is not naivete. It is alignment. When you bless instead of compare, you step out of the market and into the temple. The heart that blesses cannot simultaneously steal. The eye that blesses cannot simultaneously covet. Peace returns because love has replaced measurement and blessing has replaced comparison. Carry this into the next scroll and the next silence with the password you already know, for it keeps the altar oriented and the instruments in their place. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it when you look on a neighbor's light. Say it when your own seems dim. Say it before the post and after the pause. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that oneness, the neighbor is not a rival. The neighbor is your kin in the one. And from such kinship, blessing becomes inevitability, and peace becomes the unforced climate in which you walk, online and off. Beloved, let us name plainly what has been revealed. The market of images did not merely disquiet your nerves. It whispered a new name over your soul and invited you to worship it. It did not just steal peace, it tried to lay claim to your eye. This is idolatry, not entertainment. And like all idolatry, it fractures the self because it displaces the one. The remedy is not a tighter fist upon behavior. It is the consecration of attention to God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Attention is worship. What you revere, you resemble. Therefore, turn your gaze where the name is true. I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Now hear the password that has been given to steady your step as you walk back into the world. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, not a slogan, as sustenance. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, not to summon a mood, to recognize a fact. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let it enter the breath. Let it attend the scroll. Let it be the sentence that goes before your speech and stands guard after your silence. Sufficiency is not achieved, it is realized. When the heart consents to the source, the scales fall from the eyes. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Identity now. Let us say it with the plainness that breaks spell work. I am not in the physical. I am not in the image. I am not in the role. I am not in the praise or the blame. I am in God and God is in me. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. In him we live and move and have our being. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. No algorithm has ever yet found any me inside of a profile. The true I was never in the picture. The picture cannot lose it, and the picture cannot supply it. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Now, a moment of holy practicality. Close the inner door. No performance. No bargaining. A single quiet consent. Live thou my life. Fulfill thyself in me. Not my will, but thine be done. Be still and know that I am God. Wait one unhurried breath. If the click comes, give thanks. If it does not, give thanks. The law is honored in the turning. As you sow attention in the one, you reap atmosphere from the one. Do not tamper with this law by making it a lever. Let it be your light by which you walk. Carry then the password into all thresholds. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it at the door of the feed. Say it at the door of sleep. Say it when praise tempts, when shame pricks, when fear argues. Say it when your neighbor shines. Say it when you feel dim. It does not inflate. It orients. It does not excuse. It equips. It does not harden. It hallows. And with it, let the affirmations take root until they replace reflex with remembrance. I am not in the physical. I am not in the image. I am in God, and God is in me. Christ in you, the hope of glory. From this center, blessing flows without measurement because the eye has no lack to fill. We end as we began by turning. Thank you, Father, that the true I is intact now and always. Thank you that I am not late and I am not behind. I am present where thou art present, and that is everywhere. The devices may turn, the seasons may shift, but the name remains. I and my Father are one. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And so it is, and I thank you.